All right, so the first thing we're going to do is let's add the crate. So we'll do sprite. We'll just go ahead and set it outside of the layout here, and we're going to pick this crate, and we'll close that. And so that's our crate. Now I'm going to make mine just a little bit smaller. It's too big, so I'm going to make mine 40 by 40. So now what we can do is let's label this. Let's rename this crate. All right, so we want to add the physics behavior to our crate. So let's go ahead and add physics. And then let's also add the bound to layout so that they don't fall off the screen. All right, now let's go ahead and create the crates to automatically fall down and just kind of respawn them over and over again. So what we're going to do for that is we're just going to do system, and then we're going to do every X seconds, and we want them to come a lot. So let's go ahead and say 0.5 seconds. So every half of a second, let's go ahead and spawn a crate. So we'll do system, and then we'll do create object, and we're going to create the crate. And then we don't have any layers yet, but we're actually going to add some layers here in just a second. So the X going across the top, let's go ahead and just pick a random number between 0 and this is 854. So let's do 854. And then the X is the up and down. But since we can't spawn them outside of our layout, let's go ahead and just set this to 50 so that they're down a little bit. All right, so let's run this and see if our crates fall and get automatically created. All right, so we'll just try to keep our character up top so we can watch it here for a second. All right, excellent. Now you'll notice they're not very elastic and they kind of get stuck on the tile backgrounds here. So let's change the elasticity settings and the friction settings so that they're just much more bouncy and kind of spinning around and so on. So back on our layout, for each of our tiled background, let's change a couple of these values. So let's go ahead and change the elasticity as well as the friction on them. And then we'll also do it for our blocks, our crates as well. So let's set our friction to 0.1. And then let's make them a little bit more elastic. So let's say 0.5 for those. And we'll do that for each of them. And then for our crate, let's give it a greater density just so that it's a little bit more solid and it's more likely to slide and fall down. And then let's set its elasticity to 0.8 just so that it kind of spins and rotates a little bit more. Now let's test those settings and just see how that looks. All right, so you can already see our crates are much more elastic and are bouncing all over the place. And spinning and just creating much greater obstacles. All right, so now let's create our star. These will be something that we collect. So just like with the crates, they'll fall from the top and then we'll go ahead and collect them. So let's go ahead and import the frames. There's actually 3 frame sets here. And we'll delete this first frame. And then let's make sure that we set this to a loop so that it'll continue to spin as they're falling. Now let's dynamically create them as well. So let's go back here. Now let's go ahead and create another system, every. And for this, why don't we just pick a random number between 1 and 4 seconds. So it won't be nearly as frequent as the crates. And then we'll go ahead and use the same values here. We'll do system, create object. We're going to spawn the star. And we'll go ahead and do random 0 to 854, and then we'll do the same here with 50 just so that they get spawned down a little bit. Why don't we rename this sprite as well? So we'll call this star. All right, so let's add a couple behaviors to our star. Let's go ahead and add the physics so that they fall. And then let's also add the bound to layout so they don't bounce outside of the screen. All right, so there's our star. You can see it's rotating and it's spinning. And they're falling just like all the other crates are. So let's create some layers. So let's go here. Let's rename this layer to, we'll call it main. And then let's add a layer underneath it called background. And then this will be where we put our background just so that it's behind everything. And then let's add a layer at the top called HUD. And this will be our heads up display. So make sure they're in this order, otherwise they won't work. Everything we've done so far has been on the main layer. So let's first of all start with our background. So let's move this water to the background so that it actually is behind everything. So select your water, and then over here on layer, just go ahead and change that to background. And so now it's on the background. Now what you'll notice is that it's behind the main layer. And since our main layer was created first, it actually has a feature on it that is making it not transparent. So let's go ahead and change this. So if you click main, and then right here change this property that says transparent from no to yes, then we'll actually be able to see our water. Now the next thing we're going to do here for our background is let's go ahead and add a background. So let's go ahead and insert a new tiled background, and we're going to put it on the background. And let's use this ground here, this wooden pattern. And then let's make this throughout the whole screen. And this will cover our background. And then we'll have to send it to the bottom of the Z order so that the water's in front of it. All right, so now we have a background and it's actually on our background. So now that we're done with the background, we can go ahead and lock it so we don't accidentally move it. All right, so now let's go ahead and create our HUD. So let's select our HUD layer, and let's go ahead and create a text box right here on our HUD. We're going to make this we'll just change the font to be about 22 and bold, and then we'll make that a little bit larger. Let's set the color to white, and then I'm just going to align this right align so that it shows up like that. And then we'll go ahead and set the value to 0. And this will be the number of stars that we collect. Let's go ahead and call this score. All right, now let's go ahead and create a variable, a global variable, and we'll just call this our star count. We'll leave that at 0. All right, so now let's go ahead and set up the score to keep track of the count. So we'll do system every tick, and then we'll just go ahead and do our score set text, and then we'll set this equal to our star count. Now we haven't actually done any collisions on this just yet, so this value is not being increased. So we'll do that here next. All right, because we've got a lot of different body parts, we're going to have to create a collision for each of them. So to start with, let's just go ahead and start with the head. So let's say head, and let's use this is overlapping with another object because we're going to need to have a bunch of them. So we'll say is overlapping other object, and then we'll say star. And now we're going to add another condition, and we're going to say arm is overlapping another object, star. And we're going to do this for each of the body parts. Okay, so I've added all of them, but this is going to be overlapping all of them. So we need to actually change this to an OR. So if we click here on the far left and we right click and we say OR, make OR block, this will now say if any one of these is true, then we want to go ahead and collect the star. So to collect the star, what we'll do is we'll say star, and then we'll go ahead and destroy it. And then we'll go ahead and add 1 to our global variable. So add 2, our star count 1. All right, so now when we grab a star or we collide with a star, we'll go ahead and collect that star. Okay, so now that we've collected this, one of the things that we did forget to do was we forgot to set the parallax value on our HUD. So let's go back and do that real quick. So click HUD, and then over here on the parallax, change this to 0, 0. And what that does is that keeps everything on this particular layer from moving around. So it'll always be on the screen no matter what, and it moves at a different rate as everything else. So then our score will stay on the screen even as our character falls to the bottom. So let's go ahead and test that, and let's see if our HUD works, and let's see if we can collect stars. All right, so let's see if we can grab this star. Yep, so now you can see our stars as they get collected by our ragdoll, our stick figure. The HUD gets updated, and as you can see, the HUD follows us even as we fall down towards the bottom here as well. So now let's go ahead and change it so that when our crates are in the water, after about 10 seconds, they actually fade away and get deleted. Otherwise, they're just going to build up forever. So let's go ahead and pick crate, and then let's add the fade behavior. And what we're going to do here is we're going to set this to activate on no to no, or activate on start to no. And then we're going to set our wait time to, let's say, 10 seconds. So they'll sit in the water for 10 seconds before they actually start to fade. So then on the event sheet, let's go ahead and add an event, and we're going to say if crate collide or is overlapping, and then we're going to pick water. Then we're going to start that fade. So then we're going to say crate start fade. And so now when they hit the water, they'll go ahead and start to fade. After they'll wait 10 seconds, and then they'll start to fade. Another thing we want to do is if our stars hit the water, let's just have them get destroyed right away. So let's go ahead and say star is overlapping, and then we'll go ahead and pick the water. And then for that, we're going to go ahead and just say star destroy. So now our stars will get destroyed as soon as they hit the water. All right, so the last few things that we're going to do, let's go ahead and create a rule that if our stick figure hits the water, he gets destroyed, and all of his joints get blown apart, and the game is over. So let's go ahead and say add event. And for this, we're going to say, we're just going to have it be his body rather than each of the individual pieces. So we're going to say body, and then let's say is overlapping, and then let's pick the water. Now with this, with these joints, there's this, with the body, when we created those joints, there's actually a function in here called, right here, remove all joints. So this will instantaneously remove those joints, and his arms, his legs, and his head will all go flying in different directions depending on how much force he has on him at the time. So let's go ahead and use that. And then what we're also going to do, because this is going to end the game and he'll die at this point, let's go ahead and delete his body so that he can't continue to move. So we'll say body destroy. All right, so let's give this a test and see. But what I'd like to also do is I don't want him to start at the top. I want to have him start towards the bottom. So let's select him, and let's move him all the way down near the bottom. So let's put him on this platform right here. So this will be where he starts. All right, so let's test this and see if if he'll die when he hits the water. All right, so down he goes. And there you go. It wasn't that exciting because you couldn't really see his arms and legs. But if you wanted to create something like a spike for him to hit, and call that delete all joints, then that'll also work as well. Now as these crates start falling down, once they hit the water, they're going to start their fade here after 10 seconds. And so then they're going to actually disappear as well. And then that'll prevent them from just building up forever and ever. So you can see they're starting to fade, and then the stars, as they hit the water, they just immediately get destroyed. All right, I think we should have some instructions so the player knows what to do. So let's go ahead and add a text here, and we'll put this, actually we don't want this on the HUD. Let's go ahead and put this on the main. So we'll change the active layer to main. And then let's just give the player some instructions here. Let's say catch the stars, but don't drown. All right, and then let's change the font on that. And I think white will look better on this, so let's set it to white. We'll make it larger font. There we go. Let's also set it to bold. And maybe we center the text. All right, so we'll do this, and then let's also add fade to this. And then we'll fade this out over maybe 3 seconds, or let's do 5 seconds. All right, now let's also add a message down here that says that you drowned. So let's go ahead and add, and we'll go ahead and say you drowned. And then we'll go ahead and add, we'll set this to invisible because we only want that to show up when they die. So let's make this bold, maybe 24, and let's use red. We'll make this a little bit bigger. And then let's go ahead and add the flash behavior as well so that we can flash that message. All right, so now let's say right here, when he gets destroyed, we'll go ahead and say, I didn't relabel those, we'll say start flash. And we'll just set this to go forever and ever and ever. Let's go ahead and let's name these you lose, and we'll name this one message. All right, so let's give this a try and see how it works. All right, so there we have it. We've kind of got a game where our character is beaten up, hit with blocks, can potentially collect stars, and if he gets down too far to the bottom, there you'll see his arms and legs went flying as well, and he drowned. So there you go. There's our game, kind of a fun one. You can go ahead and create anything that you'd like on there for kind of different platforms, make it more challenging or less challenging. So good luck, have fun.